Okay, so welcome everybody. This is the first year we've done this with Project Resources, and we're kind of excited about it. It seems to be helping so far with some of the people who joined us last week. But we're doing this as a 90-minute session. You know, if I were to go into the weeds and the great detail of all the topics we're going to talk about today, then it would be a little bit, you know, that would be not be possible. We would need like an 8 or a 10-hour class to do that. So I'm going to hit the high points and give you some of my own personal tips and things that I've seen come up over the years, as well as walk you through where you can find the more detailed training. So this is why I wanted everybody to be able to log into Clearview to make sure you know how to access it. And so it really works best if you've got two monitors where you can have Clearview and Vista open on one screen, and then this GoToMeeting on the other where you can see my screen, because I'm going to be doing a little back and forth. Okay, so starting with Clearview, okay. If you go in and what I need you to do actually is access it from the help menu, which you can, or you may have it just bookmarked in your internet browser. But either way, if you're going through the help menu, you just want to go to the Viewpoint online training as opposed to the knowledge base or whatever. If instead it takes you to the home page, if the way you log in takes you to the home page where it's a bunch of different icons, then you want to select the online training option. I am logging in so everybody can kind of follow along with the same path. And looks like a couple of other people have arrived just now. So for everybody who's new, welcome. And we are making sure that everybody can access and getting logged into Clearview if you're not already. So when you get into it, you're going to see, if you scroll down a little bit, let me minimize my meeting. Okay. It's no longer under the recently added section, but if you keep going down a little bit further under announcements, you'll see this one dated 11/14/2018. Vista year-end training is now available. So make sure you don't go to Pro Contractor or any of the others. Up here at the top, you see all these links for year-end training, but if you look carefully, that says Spectrum. We're not Spectrum, we're Vista. Okay. So make sure you find the Vista year-end training link and open it up. And you'll get this little pop-up box, and you want to go to the link under U.S. customers. Click here. Okay. Sorry, I'm getting a little slow down when I want to. Okay. So this is just kind of a little thing that tells you what it covers. We are actually not going to be covering like accounts payable, general ledger, closing. We're just focusing on payroll today. So you should have a little blue box that says either open item or resume if you've been in it before. I'm going to go to resume, and then another box will pop up. And so now you are in the class and not on the, it's kind of like a different website. Taking you to, if you've been in it before, it will put you right where you left off. If you don't see this menu over here on the left, you can click these. Does everybody see these little 3 lines here at the top left corner? So that kind of toggles the menu off and on, or the table of contents. Okay. So Viewpoint has done this every year for quite a few years now, and it really, really is complete, and it's really good. I want to just walk you through. I'm not going to sit here and read out all the training to you because, like I said, it could take 8 hours or more. But I just want to kind of hit the high points and give you some of my own perspective on some items. So over here on the left, I always suggest start from the beginning. Look at your helpful links. We've got links to Viewpoint business forms where you can order your W-2s and ACA forms, 1099 forms, and so on. It's got a link to some of the IRS regs you'll need, and so on. And then look at the payroll checklist. So if you're there right now, and if anybody needs me to slow down and wait for you to catch up, let me know. I can try to wait a few seconds. But this is the checklist that you want to go ahead and print. It's a Word document. So if you're in there right now, you can go ahead, and I'll pause for a minute and give you a chance to do that so that you will see and have this little checklist in front of you. I'm going to talk about some of these things. So that's, you can, just save it in a file somewhere, whatever you want to do. And notice down at the bottom, underneath the link to the Word document, it's got those steps that are in that printed checklist. You've got them here with little hyperlinks to the right that says go to KB article. That's the knowledge base. So every single one of these steps, you can then select an article if there's things that you feel like you need more help with that you've never done before. Okay? Or it says go to lesson. Okay, so lessons can be accessed, again, from this checklist or from the main menu over here on the left. Okay? So one of the first things that they talk about is balancing accumulations. You can read it in words and it will, explain what they mean by balancing your accumulations. But what that is let me drop this down a minute. In payroll, we've got the payroll employee accumulations report. Sorry, that's this report. This is the program. Sorry, and then you've got the report. So the report, payroll employee accumulations, pulls information from this employee accumulations table. They are intricately linked to one another. It's very important. When I say balance the accumulations, there are certain things that you want to be looking for, and you should do this as soon as possible. Don't wait till year end. If you're just going live this year, it's critical that you do this as you first start doing payroll. And this is kind of a way that ensures that all of your setups are correct. So what I've developed over time is kind of a thing that I've found over the years of everything that could possibly go wrong that has gone wrong, how to prevent that from happening. So I've got an example here, and I would be happy to, okay, a couple of people are asking me to make them the presenter. I don't know if I can do that. Or is anybody not able to see my screen? Okay. Well, I'm going to have to remain the presenter for now. Okay. So what I do is, I run the payroll accumulations report. Most of you have probably seen this before. You go all the way to the last couple of pages where there's just the company totals. And then notice I've got these little code letters here. This E, A, B, C, T, T. Everybody see that? So this is coming from a Viewpoint demo database. So the numbers are looking a little, overly simple and low than what you probably have. But the principle is still the same. So E is for true earnings. So true earnings, this is a very important concept. True earnings are the earnings that are subject to tax of some sort. They're W-2 wages. It would not be, for example, employee expense reimbursements. That would not be a true earning. So the first thing you have to make sure you do is when you're setting up your earnings codes, there's a checkbox. Sorry, it's a little slow. And it says true earnings for payroll reports. Okay. So that is a reporting checkbox. It's important for it to be reported that way as true earnings, or some of these calculations won't be correct. Just because you check that box doesn't make it taxable. It is taxable when you have an earnings code such as number 1 for regular time, and you put these deductions and liabilities on it, like federal. This is what makes it taxable, what we're looking at right here. So, as long as that earnings code tells it, you tell it what kinds of taxes it's subject to, what to deduct from it, then that's what's making it become taxable. This checkbox here has to do more with the reporting, but it is very important. Okay, so in the test, I've got this little spreadsheet where you get to use a little algebra. It's really just addition and subtraction. It's not that hard. And I'll be happy to send this out to anybody who wants it for an example. So we're looking at the FIT, your Federal Income Tax Wages Test. So what is the difference between your true earnings and your letter A here, the $72,508, and your true earnings? Well, the difference should be your pre-tax deductions. So in this example, they're down here at the bottom, medical insurance and 401k, that $50 and that $33. So as I show you this, I do it with the disclaimer that don't go printing your report and mark it up exactly like mine, because you're going to have different deductions. Some of you may have as many as 10 different health and dental and vision insurance codes that are all pre-tax. So you have to add those all into the formula too. So this is just an example, and just kind of follow the theory. Okay. So do your true earnings minus these two deduction codes equal your subject wages or federal income tax? In my example, they do. Okay. FICA test is very similar, except that you can't deduct 401k for FICA, as you probably know by now. So you're only, in this example, only subtracting the 50, and that is a match in my example. Check your FICA taxes. Do the eligible wages, going back to this, now we're looking at the eligible column. So for FICA Social Security, there's $72,541.69. You want to do the math and make sure that the eligible wages times 6.2% equals this $44.97, and the same thing with the Medicare. So that's what this test is about. So, it looks like my eligible times the Medicare amount is off by about $3. On $1,000, that might be a little bit more than rounding differences. You might want to investigate it, or you might not. You certainly probably don't want to, spend too much time or pay a consultant for an hour or two to troubleshoot and find $3. That's a judgment call. Another one is, do your FICA employee equal the FICA employer? They should always be the exact same amount in terms of your subject and or at least subject wages, maybe not eligible because of the cap held on Social Security.
Oh my God! He's looking at the screen and he's rubbing his ears and he's going, "God, you're driving me absolutely crazy."
Some laughter back there. Somebody's having fun.
Yeah.
Okay. So
mute your phones, everybody, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So in this example, you've got the deductions at the top, and you got the liabilities down here at the bottom. So your FICA SSER is $72,541.69. Up here at the top, $72,541.69. So always make sure both the employee and the employer matches equal each other. A couple of others, you could probably figure these out. Do your state income tax wages add up to your federal income tax wages? They should, but they won't if you have any states that you work in that don't have state income tax. So, in this case, they do. All of my T's, all of my state income tax wages equal the federal. If they're off, then it could be because the difference could be, for example, Florida or Tennessee wages, and that's okay. That's what you would expect to find. Same thing with the state SUTA equaling the FUTA, and so on. So workers' comp, do your workers' comp wages equal your federal wages? So that's this letter W right here, the 66,000. Really, that should equal your true earnings because I think everything's subject to workers' comp. Up here, it's off by quite a bit, 72,000 minus 66. I don't know why, because I didn't do this database. So this database is full of all kind of junk test transactions that other consultants have been in and played with and stuff. So we never know what we're going to find. So any questions on the employee accumulations test? Or okay, just let us know or let Jenny know if you'd like a copy of this. Okay. So coming back into a little training, we talked about balancing the accumulations. One of the checklist things is, do all of your normal year-end processing. So you're going to do bonus checks at the end of the year usually and taxable fringes. So those are all additional topics over here on the left that we can look at. Bonus checks, and again, if you go into any of these, well, I didn't show you this. On every one of these topics, the great thing I like about this class is you have the option to either read it or watch it or both. And then they also have the FAQs. And I'm trying to scroll back up, but anyway, the FAQs were at the top of the page. So if you select read on how to process a bonus check, and I apologize, I am clicking it, but it's, here we go. Got a little slow. Then again, you've got a downloadable document with all of the steps, step by step, exactly what to do. Or if you select watch, it will be a tutorial which you can play and follow along with. And some people like the tutorials because they can have their own Vista open on one screen while they watch this, and you can pause it at any time. It's an actual person talking on the other end. You can pause it at any time and watch the steps and see the screenshots. So it's a matter of what your personal learning style is, if you'd rather just read about it and follow along. But basically, a few key things when it comes to bonuses you want to make sure of are in the setup of your income taxes. Let's go to payroll deductions and liabilities. You may remember this from when you first started setting things up. I'm sorry. I apologize. It's earnings codes I meant to go to. I'm just going back and forth today. I'm so sorry. Oh, that didn't look right. Let me try this again. I was right the first time, but I was showing you the wrong screen. It is the deductions and liabilities. So on your federal income tax code, which is usually code 1, notice there's this box here that you have checked. You should have checked calculate as rate of gross on bonus sequence, and what do you want your bonus rate to default to. So you can always override it for certain employees, but if you want your bonuses to have the statutory rate, which I think is now lower than, is it 25% or even lower under the new tax law? I can't remember. You can put that here, and that way if the system knows that this is a bonus run, it will take that rate instead of following the regular tax tables. But to have it know that it's a bonus rate, then what you've got to do when you set up your pay period, as you know, in the first step when you process pay periods, to go into this pay period control. When you set up a pay period control, let me find one that's open. Over here under the payment sequence tab, you see this checkbox that says bonus. So if you check that box, then the system knows this is a bonus run, and it will look at that flag under the federal taxes or any other taxes that you want to put a special rate in, and it will use that rate. And you can also elect to override direct deposit. Some companies, for whatever reason, they don't want to use direct deposit for bonus checks. They want to give people a real check. So you can do that easily here. Just make sure that if you're going to do a bonus run in the same week or along with the same payroll as a regular payroll, then you have to make it sequence 2, and you need to process sequence 1 before you process sequence 2. It's very important because of the thresholds and so on for your Social Security caps. A lot of people elect to do a completely separate pay period control for the bonus runs and not have it tied in with the regular payroll, and that's fine too. Okay. Going back to our class. Taxable fringes, same thing as with the bonuses. You can either read the detailed step-by-step or you can watch it. The important thing to know about doing these is, so this is like if you've got employees that have company cars and you want to, charge them the amount that you're supposed to charge them taxes on, whatever. There's different methodologies. I can't get into the tax part of that, but there's different methodologies to know what is the value of that car that you're letting them use. And if it's a flat $750 a year or whatever it is now or whatever, and you want to charge them the taxes on that and put it on their W-2s, which is what you're really supposed to do. Most companies elect to only deduct the minimum, which is the Social Security and Medicare tax, and not fool with the federal income tax on it. So just remember that you have to do that before the end of the year, because they have to have a real check with some actual wages for those extra taxes to come out of. If you've already paid them all of their paychecks that they're going to get in the year, then how are you going to, get those taxes from them, get them to pay those taxes before the end of the year if there's nothing to deduct it from? So make sure you set that up at any of your final payroll. It doesn't have to be the last one. It can be any time during the year. So it gives you 2 different options here. There is the first one that says if the employee is paying their portion of the FICA, do these steps. And then there's another one for if the employer is paying the portion of the FICA, which some companies elect to do. So both of these articles have a step-by-step. It involves adding an earnings code and a deduction code, because they're not actually getting any cash. So you have to charge their W-2s with the value of the car, and that's the earnings code. And then you have to turn around and set up a deduction code to pull it back out, and so that only the taxes remain. Okay. Leave reset, that's a fun one. Okay, so for leave reset, I won't go into a whole lot of that now. I highly recommend that if you are planning to go live this coming year with you tracking employee leave, that you watch the tutorial. There is a completely separate class. I mean, you can read about it in here and it'll give you the high points, but if you want something a little more detailed, there is a class. I want to say it's about another hour and a half long tutorial in Clearview about how to set up and process employee leave. So I highly recommend that. It's a good one. I've watched it myself, and it's a really good one. It gives you some good examples. If you already are live on tracking employee leave, then what you're really interested in now at this point is, do I need to do a reset, and when do I do it? So you can read about that in here. Basically, you have to do a reset if there's a limit. So if your employee leave is limited to, only accrue no more than, say, 40 hours a year, and if you don't do the reset, then if they've hit that limit before the end of the year, then it won't accrue anything. It won't give them any leave in the second year, in the next year, because they've already hit that limit and you didn't reset it to where the year-to-date is 0. Okay, we get to start all over. This is a new year, so we get another 40 hours. But that will only happen if you perform the reset step. Okay. If you have not yet implemented leave and you want to do it in 2019, you don't absolutely have to do it on the first day or the first week of the year. If you're tracking their leave balances offline, say in an Excel spreadsheet, and you're okay with continuing to track it that way until you get through all of your other year-end fun that you get to do, W-2s, and want to hold off until, say, February or whatever, you can do that at any time. So, and you can also go back retroactively. So if your policy is to give, certain people 40 hours or other people 80 hours on the 1st of January every year, you can come along, say in March, and run the routine that will give them those hours effective the 1st of January, and then go back through and it will search out all of the payroll that you've already processed in which you coded their time to a leave code. So if they've taken PTO in January and February and so on, and you wait until March to do these steps I'm talking about, then it will go back retroactively and get them caught up. And just kind of keep that in mind and let me know if you need any additional help with this, because it is a pretty big one. I do want to make sure I point out that the recommended way to do it for companies that have different levels of leave, which is most companies, first year you get 40 hours or 2 years or whatever. After so many years, you get more time. Don't use different leave codes for each of those scenarios. You should have one default leave code for, say, PTO or for vacation, and maybe another one for sick time if you track it separately. But the different tiers should not be set up as separate leave codes. You should use the employee override. So, you start everybody out the same, and then when they reach the next level to increase it to 80 hours, then all you have to do is go to employee leave and do an override for those employees. And it's much better tracking. If you just end one leave code and start adding another leave code, then the reporting you won't like it. Okay. So tax updates, this is you can read about this again, but make sure that you know that when you load the tax update, which Viewpoint should be introducing right about now and making them available to you, your IT person may be the one, loading the tax update, which they can do it at any time. They can load it. But you don't want to initialize it on the front end within the software until you're ready to do your first payroll of 2019. So it's very important that you remember that anytime a tax update has been installed, it doesn't actually take effect until you go in and do your routine update, which is here it is, Payroll Routine Master. So what you want to do when you're ready for it to take effect is go under here, File, and Initialize, and you just say yes. And that takes the installed update that IT has loaded, and it actually pushes it out into your software and applies those new rates. So you can always tell if you've got the latest one by if you scroll down and find the federal tax. Notice how it ends in number 18. So that procedure name tells me that this is the 2018 tax update. So for now, I'm good. Some of your states won't show 18. Like Alabama's is only 13. Even though I just hit the initialize and I applied it, there's nothing new. So nothing new has happened in Alabama as far as their tax rate since 2013. So that's exactly what you would expect to see. Okay. When you do that, a couple of things that will not be updated, and it will tell you when you go down to Viewpoint to load the tax routines, there will always be an article of the reader notes, and it will tell you in there, make sure that you do this, this, and this. And one of the things that it does not do is it doesn't update automatically anything that's not an actual routine. For example, Social Security thresholds, you have to do that manually. So FICA Social Security in here, this one hadn't been updated in a while, you have to put the new amount in there. Same thing with your SUDAs, any of your state SUDA taxes. Income taxes you don't have to do it with, because notice that on income taxes, if this method is routine, then there's nothing else you need to do. the routine handles it. But when it's not a routine, then you do have to do it. You do have to update it. Okay. Any questions about that? Okay. Okay, W-2 processing, I believe, was next. Okay. Same thing as with all the other topics. Make sure you either print or watch the step-by-step complete details. I'll take you on a quick little tour in Vista. I really like how Vista does the W-2s. Some of the older softwares, if you may remember, if you worked on older softwares where you'd have to wait and you couldn't do anything until you completely balanced everything in the previous year, because you'd have to make a copy of your database and save it in a different file before you could run the first checks of 2019 of the new year. Well, that's not the case in Vista. You don't have to have already run your 941s and so on. You do have to have processed your last paycheck for the year before you do this, but there's certain things that you can do at any time. So in the W-2s, that's all the way at the bottom, you have a menu item called Payroll W-2 Process. When you do it for the first time, you're going to enter the tax year in here and initialize header. And this information is going to pull from some of it from your company setup or some of your tax code setups in Payroll. But when you initialize the header, your next step is going to be initialize federal. If it's the first year you've done this, then this table right here is blank, and you have to fill it out manually. So what you've got to do is enter these item codes, and these are statutory codes from the IRS. So, for example, number 55 is the employer-provided health insurance. So these numbers, although they're not the same as the box numbers per se on the W-2, they link to those. And you then have to link them to your own deduction and liability codes, which is this column here. So to find out what these numbers to be, the best suggestion I can tell you is if you click on any one of these boxes when you're in this form and hit your F1 key. F1 is your help. It will then take you to an article. Oh, I lied. It tells you to, it took me to the article, but the article tells me to go to hit F4. Oh, I'm sorry. All right, so we'll do the F4 lookup. There we go. Okay, so these are the item codes that are already built into the software, and you just need to scroll through and see which one of these ones apply to you. So you may not need any of these Puerto Rico or Virgin Islands codes, but everybody's going to need at least these first 6, and then maybe dependent care benefits, maybe deferred comp, and so on. You've got to use these items as they are, and then you've got to link them to your own deduction liability codes. And then once you've done that, you can then initialize state, and all of the state tax information will pull in. It's already in. If I hit initialize state again, it'll just pull in more current information in terms of these deduction codes. And then finally, the employees. There's your list of employees. If you want to see what's on each employee, what it pulled in, you can double click them. So let's look at Clark Griswold. He's such a fun guy. And there's his information. And you can look at the federal information, wages. So if for any reason, worst case scenario, something's not right, you can always override it here. Hopefully you won't ever have to do that, but that's a possibility. If you have an incorrect address, if you go to the employee master and change their address in the employee master, it will not change it on this form unless you reinitialize. So keep that in mind. If you realize somebody has moved, they need a new address, you update their employee master. You have 2 choices. You can either come in here and also make the change in this form, or you can reinitialize for it to pull back in. And then another tool is Let me go back in here. Under the file menu, you've got all the other steps are under the file menu. So then you can go and print them or do your electronic filing. Notice that Viewpoint does not print federal forms. It does not print the federal pink copies that you send to the IRS. It only does electronic filing. So that's very important. By now you know that if you've been live for a couple of years, but you've got to make sure that you get online with the IRS and register for that transmittal number to be able to upload your file. But if you're going to be ordering them, you can come in at any time. You don't have to wait to the end of the year. You can do this tomorrow if you want to, probably not tomorrow, Saturday, but you can come in here at any time and get a count by simply going to, let's say, print copies to be filed with tax returns. And I'm going to hit preview. And then I'm going to hit W-2 preview. And this is one way to see what they're going to look like if you order them from Vista. And I'm just waiting. I did hit the box. Here we go. Okay. Okay, so this is the preview report. Okay, so the preview report is not what the actual W-2s look like, but this is all of the information. So you're going to want to run this report and print it out to kind of go through and proof it. But down at the bottom, it'll tell you number of forms needed is 3. Okay, my demo only has 3 people. Sorry. And by forms, they mean literally pieces of paper, not necessarily numbers of employees. Wanted to show you what the W-2s actually look like. Here we go. So they're the ones that they're 4 to a page. If an employee only needs 3 forms, then the 4th section will be blank. So you've got a copy B, here's copy C, and then here's copy 2 for the state return. He only has Georgia, so there's only 1. If he worked in 2 states, there would be a second one, and so on. So they're blank forms, and Vista will print all of the lines and boxes so you don't have to worry about alignment. And as the previous report told us, there are only 3. And that's how many you need to order. I found out yesterday, see, sometimes I learn from you guys more than you learn from me sometimes when you run into problems. And so another person who took this class, who watched this last year, did the accumulations test and discovered that there were some things off, and I went through it with her and found out that for whatever reason, they had set up state income tax codes for Tennessee and Florida, even though they have no state income tax. So the employees weren't, they weren't getting deducted any taxes, but it was creating accumulations records of wages earned in those states. So it was throwing everything off. And if we did not delete them, and delete all those records in their accumulations, what would happen is that they would get they would end up getting a W-2 with wages and no tax, and it says Tennessee and and Florida on there. It's basically wasting paper. So you'd end up ordering more forms that you don't even need. So we went through, and as you know, if you've ever tried to delete anything in Viewpoint, you have to go here first to delete it, and then it won't let you delete it because it exists somewhere else. So then you have to delete there. And we went through that whole drill, and we thought we got rid of it everywhere it could possibly be gotten rid of, and it still wouldn't let us delete it, the code. So we discovered that, and I wanted to share this with you so you don't make the same mistake. What we discovered was that in the last piece of information where we could not kill the darn things, was we had gone through, or she had gone through and done the check to see how many forms she needed and initialized everything. And initializing in the state header see how these are in gray? So there was the Florida and the Tennessee codes were stuck in here. And if you can't delete them from here, then you can't delete them out of your payroll deduction liability code setup. But we did delete all of the information off of all the employees. So those employees will no longer get a $0 Tennessee or, whatever form printed. So we're okay. It's just an aggravation that we can't delete it from there. So you might want to, hold off on doing this initializing on your states until you've done your accumulations test to make sure there's nothing weird going on that you need to get rid of and delete. So just want to share that little fun tidbit. Okay. So the last topic I really have is the Affordable Care Act. So we've only got about 20 minutes left. I saved that to the end because if anybody is not subject to the ACA, then you could, you might want to drop off the call. But let me stop first and see if anybody has any questions or suggestions or anything they want to share with the others. Oh, I'm so quiet. That's good. Everybody understands it all. That's great.
Well, remember, everybody, you're muted. So if you have a question, don't forget to unmute.
Yeah. Okay. I will continue on then with the Affordable Care Act. And this, like the leave processing, is better covered in a separate class all by itself because it is quite in depth, and you can go through the ACA checklist, and you can make sure things are done and that you're doing certain things. And this is all very important information. But if it's your first year and you've never set up and done the ACA forms in Vista, then you're probably going to want to go in and watch the longer tutorial. So if you go back to the Clearview main page and do a search on it on ACA, that you'll find a lengthy tutorial. I don't think it's more than 2 hours, if that long, maybe 90 minutes, and it'll walk you through everything that you need to know. But it is pretty complex, and hopefully everyone on this call has the HR module. If you don't have human resources, it is a lot more manual, but they've done a good job of improving things over the years. I'm getting the echo again. On the HR side. So a few little tricks I want to point out. So let me close this in human resources. So the place where the 1095C forms pull from is in your resource master. There's a tab. Come on. Sorry about the slowness, guys. Sometimes when I'm doing a remote thing, it slows down. Okay, so here's a tab that says ACA History. Okay, so your 1095 forms pull from this grid. Okay, so as you may know or may not know, if it's your first year, you have to account for the entire year. So from January to December, you've got to account and have Series 1 and Series 2 codes put in here for the full year. So even if they didn't start until, say, June working for the company, then the first 6 months of the year, you've got to have a code such as 1H, no offer of coverage. Everybody see that on 1115. And the Series 2 code is kind of the reason for it, which in their case is a 2A, employee, non-employed during this month. Well, that expires on February 28th because then he was hired. So on 3/1, this guy in this example was hired. His Series 1 code, you have to know what that is. You have to get that usually from your insurance broker. For most people, it's a 1E or a 1C, or a 1A, are the most common ones that I've personally seen. And it's your plan. It's according to what your plan is and how it qualifies. And so for this period of time, from March until, let's say, so April 30th, he was enrolled in the coverage offered. And then starting in May, he was not offered coverage because he left the company. So now we've got another 2A of employed, non-employed during the month. So this is kind of what you have to do. And it is a very manual process for the first year of doing it. But I'll show you a trick. There's a nice little shortcut for at least part of it. In their payroll information tab, you've got these look back groups. So look back groups, without going too much into the weeds in it, you don't necessarily need to do the design of the software for look back groups with these measurement dates and so on. The purpose of all of that setup is to help you determine whether your employees are full-time equivalents or not. If you already know that all of your employees, or at least enough of your employees, are full-time enough, if you have enough full-time employees that you know you're subject to the act, then you really don't even need to fool with any of this, because you already know they're all full-time, or that you have enough full-time. I've got more than 50 or 200 or whatever the latest rule is, for the number of people you have to have as full-time equivalents, that you're subject to it no matter what. You're going to do it. You've got to do them. If you're kind of on the borderline and you want Vista to calculate it for you, then you've got to set up these measurement dates. Okay, so if you're not using it to determine full-time equivalency status, there's another way you can use it. If you take all of your people that you know are subject to the ACA and that are full-time and that have been with you guys for, they're your long-term employees. They were here last year. They're going to be here all this year as far as you know, unless they quit, but you can't predict that, right? So it's January, say, and you're setting this up, and you can go back and go through the grid and assign a look-back group to all the people who are going to have the 12-year coverage, or who had 12-year coverage in 2018. I'm sorry, 12-month coverage, sorry. And let's just call it Group 1. Let's say if I do an F4, okay, so I set up a look-back group number 1, and I'm calling it full-year coverage. Okay. No, I don't want to do him because he's got other stuff already in there. There's one. Let's do a couple of other people. So let's do him. I'll put him as 1. He's full-time. Next. He's already in there. Let's do another one. And so let's say we go through this and we decide, okay, all the people who we know were here the whole year and they had coverage for the entire year, let's just assign them to look back Group 1. Then you can come up here under this Tasks button, and it says Initialize the ACA coverage offer. So we'll go 1/01/18 through 12/31/18. No, actually, well, I'll see if this will work, but this database doesn't have any wages in 18, so I don't know what it'll do. But very important, restrict it to look back Group 1 and select your offer code, which I'm going to use 1E. Yours could be something different. I'll just leave that blank. You can just say full-time only, but I'm just going to do all. And you hit the Initialize button. And now I go back. Let's see. Who was the last one? Okay, Russell. ACA history. There it is. So all of the people that I just put that code 1 in, it set up their Series 1 code. It does not automatically pull in the Series 2 code, so you have to do that manually. But it's half the way there, so it at least gets half the information in one easy step. Now, once you have all this set up and going forward, if you are doing your HR benefits, through the HR module, this is a kind of a new thing. I think it was added either last year or the year before last in the, look at this benefits tab. There it is. No, he doesn't have any. easier to do this. They've added a new feature. I'll find somebody who's got medical. Here it is. Down here in this bottom right, there's a new field now for the Series 2 code. So if you are setting up their benefits, like he is, he's medical insured, he's option 2, blah, 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 and the employer paid part is in there too, and all of that's set up. And as long as you remember to come back in here and select the Series 2 code and put in the effective and eligibility dates and so on, make it active, then it will also create the Series 2 code in that grid I was just in. So that's the only way to get the Series 2 code to automatically populate is when you're setting up their coverage. So if you set up their coverage and you did make these selections this throughout the year in the last few months or whatever, it may have already populated that grid for you and you don't even realize it's there. Okay. So that's the key thing, is filling all that out. And as far as processing it at the end of the year, you go over to Payroll. And again, I'm giving you the short version, but there are more complexities and more steps. You'll want to look at the training or at least print out the written instructions. But in the processing, you've got the, right at the top, Payroll ACA process. You do all of the processing through Payroll, but you start out under tasks and you say initialize ACA, and the first choice it's going to say is initialize from Payroll or Human Resources. Well, hopefully if you've got Human Resources, that's the option you're going to select. And you select whether you just do full-time or all employees. Minimum essential coverage offer, does it apply to you? Are you a member of an aggregate group? A lot of this you're going to need help. These choices are going to come from your insurance agent or your CPA tax advisor to know what these codes need to be. But when you hit initialize, I'm not going to hit it now, but you'll come and you'll see that there will be some employees in this grid. And it'll populate, it'll pull everything from ACA that meets those rules. The good thing about this is you can reinitialize as many times as you want. And believe me, you will be going back and forth a lot. You'll find out, oh, nothing pulled through. Why? Well, something got, some little box you didn't check or something got left off. So it does give you the ability to do it as many times as you want. And every time you do it, you can select to overwrite the existing data. And then once you've got it in here under tasks, you can print the forms. So, and again, you can do this as often as you like. So you can print ACA forms just to see what they look like. And if they look right, as a first draft, so to speak, or just look at them on your screen and you'll be able to see what it is you're getting ready to do before you finalize them. I don't know if I don't know if it's going to print anything at this point. Nah. Okay. But this part here, the employee offer of coverage, your Part 2 1095C, these are the pieces that fill in from that grid in the HR Resource Master in the Benefits tab. It will all populate in here. And then you've got to, be set up to get that, what is it, the fire system is for 1099s. What is it for ACA? It's the transmittal you have to get, number that you have to get from the IRS. And again, it's under tasks. Create the ACA e-file. So this step will give you the option to create the file and save it as a text file, and then you save it and then you upload it to the IRS. But just please allow yourself enough time for this. I mean, try not to wait until a couple of days or a day before the deadline, because I do know that a lot of people have a lot of trouble with the upload part of this. And they end up having to call the IRS, and a lot of times it's on their end, the IRS's side, and you just got to make sure you allow yourself enough time for troubleshooting, because it will happen in many cases. That's a quick overview. Does anybody have any questions? We've got a little more time. I don't mind staying a little longer if anybody wants to discuss or talk about anything. Drill down a little more. And just remember that you're probably still muted, so if you do want to ask a question, make sure you unmute yourself. No? Well, okay then. Just be sure to let us know. Jenny will we will actually be processing this recording, and she will send out an email to everybody when it's ready, where you can, a link to where you can go to download it if you'd like to. And you can email her or me if you want copies of that accumulations example. And just let us know if you have any questions.
I'm thinking, Leslie, I may just send those out to everybody just to make it easy.
Sure. That's fine. Okay. Anybody else? Questions? No? All right. Well, thank you for your time, and good luck with all your year-end, and happy holidays to everybody.
Thanks, Leslie.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.